I walked into the gym and looked about to those there. It was Emmy, Partina, Juanita, Mindy, Jolene, and Laura. "Hey there, you are?" Laura said, and I moved closer to them. "You all right?" Partina asked, as it was obvious I had been crying. "Yes, he was displeased with me. All I have to do is not breathe right, and he is displeased." "Where did my Danny Lee go?" I said, and started to cry even more. Jolene came over to me and placed her arms about me. "Our master is very particular," Mindy smirked. "I have never seen this side of him, and I lived with him for over 10 years, Mindy," I told her. "Yes, my mistress, however, he did not own you and you were free," she replied. "I never seen him act like he does," I said, confused. "You were always at the tavern," Jolene laughed. "Right. There was that. I miss that place," I said. Partina laughed. "They miss you. Danny went on stage last night, and the gathering of people kept chanting your name. He told them you were not able to perform at this time. They wanted to know why, and started to call him all kinds of things, from hellion to asshole." Partina laughed. "They even threw things at him." "He never did get to sing," Laura Lee laughed. I laughed. That was what they spoke about in the study when I had woken. "I would say this week, or this following coming week, next week, you will be on stage," Partina said with a smirk. Emmy handed me a sword. I looked to her. I looked to it, taking the sword, and just held it. "Here, you hold it like this, like so," Emmy said, and I copied her. Then she made an inward swing. I followed her and dropped the sword. Parnita and Juanita laughed. "You really need to hold on to that tight. It jumps," Juanita said, and I just looked to her. I picked the sword up and was moving with Emmy, copying her. She moved it over her head and around, then back down. She then had me to hold the sword and block her as she swung at me again. I dropped the sword. "Patsy, you are going to have to hold on to that sword," Emmy said. Then, as I picked it up and clicked the blade, "Come on, and keep hold of it," she said sternly. I would block her swing, and ever so often, I would drop the sword. It was hard for me to keep hold of it. Every time I blocked and felt the jerk of the sword, I would get startled and drop it. I know we practiced the blocking for 3 hours, if not longer. I was so glad when Emmy wanted to cease. I moved to the kitchen and ate dinner, then up to Danny's room. Removing the garment, I stepped into a warm bath and laid relaxing. My thoughts went to Danny and how he made me feel, and the way he was before, and the way he was now, and I felt strange. I wanted his touch. I wanted to be with him. He had not even raised the need, and I was in it. I watched the door open and Danny moved into the bath area. "You have this thing about sleeping in the tub," he said sternly. "Forgive your girl, my master," I said. I felt my body shiver as his words were negative. "Out," he ordered and moved out of the bath area. He was not in the best moods. I stood and hurried to dry off, then moved on my hands and knees to where he sat on the bed, and I heeled at his feet. I wanted to be in his arms. I wanted to feel his touch. "My master, may your girl speak?" I asked with caution. "What is it?" he said. "May your girl feel her master's touch?" I asked, and he looked at me, placing his hand on my neck and moving it around behind my hair. I made a small sound as I waited as I wanted in his arms. I then jerked as he grabbed tight to my hair and pulled me up to him. He kissed my lips, and one thing led to another, and I received what I wanted. However, afterwards, he sent me to the ring. I laid there crying silently to myself. I hated sleeping away from him. I did not believe I would ever get used to this. I woke and healed as Danny was in the room. He stood as I healed. I watched as he moved to the closet and came back with a dress, and he laid it over the chair. You need to dress as if you are free and come down to my office, he said sternly, and then walked out of the room. I could not help yet wonder what was going on. I raised as the door closed and got dressed as he said, then moved down to his office. I moved to my hands and knees, raising the dress. I crawled into the office and healed. Mindy was at the bar. He was seated behind his desk. Brian will take you to the tavern. Mindy, you will resume to your duties, as your mistress needs to be at the tavern. I am about tired of our people telling me what a terrible man I am, he said sternly. Yes, my master, she replied, and he waved her out. I will pick you up later tonight. Do you know what owner rights is? He asked me. Yes, my master, I replied. Tony obtains them. Obey him as you would me, he told me. Yes, my master, I said. I felt flittering in my stomach. I was going to the tavern. Oh, how I had missed the tavern. It was around 12 passing that I moved with Brian to the tavern. As I entered, Jack and the others started to clap. I laughed. They made me feel so good. Tony came over to me and placed his arms about me. How are you doing? He asked. A girl is doing, master. A girl would like to give master thanks to master. I said. Thank me? For what? He asked. For a girl is being here, I said. He laughed more. That was Danny's idea. Because your fans want you back. Our people miss and love you. Now you are here to be on that stage. Do you want to be? He asked. I smiled brightly, as that was all I actually did know how to do was to sing. More than anything, I said. He nodded and moved away, and up on stage I went. And Karen handed me my guitar. Remember how to play this? She teased. Yes, mistress, I replied. That does not even sound right. You are our lead, so lead, she said. As mistress wishes, I replied and started to play. And the others joined in. Word traveled fast as people started entering. Some would enter, see me, and leave, then return with 4 and 5 more. Before 5 passing, the tavern was full. I had taken a break and was sitting at the table. Tony came over to me. This is the fullest this tavern has been in weeks, he laughed. They love a girl. I smiled as the people made me feel all warm and happy. It is my turn to say thank you, Tony said. As you are the Southern Tavern sweetheart, he said and kissed my head. I smiled back up to him after I ate my lunch. I moved back on stage. By 9 passing of the second sun, there was barely standing room in the tavern. I could not believe everyone that was there. I did notice Danny and the others come into the tavern. I ceased singing, and to my knees I went. The band no longer was playing as they watched me move to my knees. The people listening and dancing made sound of disapproval. Asshole! I heard someone call out, the hellion must be here. Another called out, and I could not believe the names they were calling Danny. Danny came up on stage and to me. "Stand up," he said, as the people still called things out to him, and they were not nice ones. As he said, I stood up. I did immediately. "Either sing with her or allow her to continue," I heard someone say. I looked at Danny, daring not to speak. "What do you want? Want me off the stage?" he asked. "No, my master," I said. I enjoyed singing with him. Had he forgot he was my life? He turned to my band. "Every day," he told them, and they started to play, and I started to sing with him, and our people went back to dancing and not calling out to Danny. After that day, I would go to the tavern by at 12 passing of the second sun, and Danny would come and pick me up. I was back on stage. However, Danny was the same with me, stern and not the Danny Lee I fell in love with. He had told me not to heel when he entered the tavern unless I was not singing. Then after the song, I would come to him. Then he would allow me once more on the stage. All right, we are on chapter 41. Okay, I had been back at the tavern for a week now. It was the 6th day of the week, and the tavern would not start filling until around 7 passing. It was 5. Not many were there, so I moved off the stage and into Tony's office. He looked up from his desk as I moved to a heel. "Yes," he asked. A girl wondered if Master would allow a girl some paper and a pen. I said to him, "You know, I just cannot get used to you speaking that way, so do not do it," he said, laughing, and I laughed with him. "My master would not approve," I replied. "True, as of right now he would not. However, he is not here, so just speak free," he told me. "All right, may I have a pen and paper?" I asked him. "Much better," he smiled and handed me a notebook and a pen. "Thank you," I replied, and moved out of the office and to the table. I sat there and started to write what was in my head. I was thinking about Danny and how we met and what I was doing and how I felt about him, and started to write a song. It was the first I had actually wanted to write in the passing of 2 months. As I sat there going over it and making changes and going over it again, I felt Danny's hand on my shoulder. I jumped straight out of the chair and healed. "Forgive me, my master. I mean, your girl, forgive your girl, my master," I fumbled frantically, as I had not noticed he had come in. He had sat where I had been sitting and looked at what I was doing. "What is this?" he asked sternly. "It is a song, my master," I replied. "I see. Did I give you allowance to write it?" He then asked, and my heart jumped into my throat, and my stomach started to tighten. "No, my master, please forgive your girl, my master, please," I said, starting to cry. "Darling, it is all right. I was jesting. Please calm down," he said, and pulled me up on his lap and in his arms, and moved his arms about me. "Your girl does not want our master displeased." I cried even more, and I felt him hold me closer. "This has got to end. I cannot keep it up much longer. I do not want to." "Patsy, calm down," he said as he called me darling, and now Patsy. I pulled back to look at him. "Forgive your girl," I said. "I told you I was jesting," he said, and started to laugh as he read the song. "You need commit it, do you?" he said, laughing. He was laughing, and for some silly reason, I was not calming. "It is just a song," I told him. "You're speaking out of turn. I do believe you are in need of discipline, he said with a laugh in his voice. I started to move to fetch him a whip, and he held me on his lap. "Where do you think you are going?" he asked. To fetch my master, your girl's whip," I replied. "Oh, I do not want your whip, or I would have ordered it. Your discipline will be for you to go on stage and sing this for me," he said with a smile. My stomach then fluttered for a different reason. Go sing your song," he said, and I stood and took the paper and gave it to those of my band. "Just play I am lost and confused. However, bump it up a little," I told them, and they smiled. As the music started, I took the mic and started to sing. I was just standing there watching the band. He walked up and he took my hand. He said, "You sure are pretty. Dear Lord, I lost the capability for thinking. I fell in love, that is no doubt. I fell in love and now there's no way out. I know he loves me, just hard to admit it. I know he loves me, I need to be committed. From the moment I looked into his dark blue eyes, my Lord, I was memorized. He asked me if I wanted to go out. I said yes without the slightest doubt. I fell in love and now there is no way out. I know he loves me, just hard to admit it. I know he loves me, I ought to be committed. He said he would give up his family just so he could stay with me. Lord, I could not let him do it. That is when I submitted. I fell in love, that is no doubt. I fell in love and now there's no way out. I know he loves me, just hard to admit it. I know he loves me, I need to be committed. I bagged his collar, I bagged his brand, then I had to bag his hand. I had to be trained, that was something we both realized, even though he was fully against it. He took me home, started my training. Lord, I found out just how much he was demanding. I fell in love, that is no doubt. I fell in love and now there's no way out. I know he loves me, just hard to admit it. I know he loves me, I need to be committed. I gave him my freedom, he accepted. I gave him my love, he tried to break it. He broke me instead. I do not know if I am coming or going. I know he loves me. I have to admit it. I know he loves me. Lord, I need to be committed. I fell in love, that is no doubt. I fell in love. I want no way out. As I sung, I danced, and those that entered stood around the stage, and before I realized it, Danny was on the stage and placed his arms about me. "Patsy Lee, I love you. You are right. And the last thing I want to do, my darling, is break your love for me," he said. I smiled and placed my arms around him. "Forgive me, my master, you could never break that love I have for you. Just had me questioning your love for me." I said sincere, and as we both were on stage and had an audience, Danny looked behind me and snapped his fingers in a rhythm beat. "Summertime," he called to them, and they started to play, and the two of us started to sing. That brought Tony out into the main room, and he looked up on the stage. "I am not paying you to sing. I will only pay you for her to sing," Tony laughed. I watched as Tony sat at the table. That night, Danny and I sung together until the tavern closed. When we returned to the palace, he allowed me to sleep with him once again. Sorry, I'm trying to see the time. Okay, we are on chapter 42. We got one more chapter to go. That next morning before I woke, I dreamed I was on stage singing. It was the night before. However, as I woke, I realized the music I heard was coming from the study. Danny was playing the guitar. I raised in the bed and moved out of it and to the rest area, and then crawled into the study and heeled. He looked up to me and placed the guitar to the side, then motioned to me. I crawled over to him and in a heel at his feet. "Get you some coffee. Then you are going to help me with something," he said. "Yes, my master," I replied and crawled to the bar where the coffee was and fixed me a cup. I moved back to him on my knees and offered it up. He took the cup and placed it to my lips. "You may drink," he said, and I took a drink. He then placed the cup on his desk and reached down, pulling me up on his lap. I felt all warm and wanted to snuggle up against him. "Relax for me," he said. I laid back on him and looked to what he was working on. As I read the first line, I looked to him. "It is a song I want to write with you. The song you sung last night has been on my mind, so you are going to help me write this one. I want you to say the first thing that comes to your mind after I say these lines. Think of the song you wrote last night. When you do,